The thing about humans, and trust me when I say this with the weight of 17 cycles serving on intergalactic vessels, is that they will eat absolutely anything. My name is Krell, and I work security detail on the cargo freighter Meridian's Edge. I am what you would call a Vorthian, which means I have 4 arms, excellent peripheral vision, and a very healthy sense of self-preservation. These traits have kept me alive through pirate raids, engine failures, and one extremely unfortunate incident involving fermented Gloxian paste. Nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for Marcus Webb. The human arrived on our ship 3 weeks ago as part of a mandatory cultural exchange program. You know, the kind of bureaucratic nonsense that sounds great in a council meeting but turns into a logistical nightmare in practice. Captain Thorne, a sensible Quilarian with silver scales and even more silver patience, assured us it would be fine. Humans were becoming a regular sight in this sector, she said. They were friendly, she said. What could possibly go wrong? Everything. As it turned out, Marcus was tall, which most humans are, with dark skin, closely cropped hair, and this perpetual expression that suggested he found the entire universe mildly amusing. He had been assigned to work with the agricultural cargo bay, helping to maintain the various specimens we transported between systems. Simple enough, right, wrong. It started on day 5. I was doing my rounds, checking the security seals on the biocontainers, when I heard humming. Not the pleasant kind either, but the sort of off-key melody that makes your antenna twitch. I followed the sound to Bay 7, where Marcus stood in front of the quarantine section. The quarantine section, I should mention, where we keep the samples that are, oh I do not know, potentially lethal? Hey Krell, Marcus said, not even turning around. Humans had disturbingly good hearing for a species with such tiny, flat ears. Got a question for you. I approached cautiously, all 4 hands resting near my stun baton. Protocol. What is the nature of your inquiry, Specialist Webb? This fruit here. He tapped the reinforced glass of a containment unit. Inside sat what looked like an innocent purple sphere, roughly the size of a human fist, with a slightly fuzzy exterior. What is it? My blood went cold. Well, colder than usual. Vorthians run a bit below what humans consider comfortable. That is a Vorthian death fruit. Please step away from the containment unit. Death fruit? Marcus leaned closer, his nose almost touching the glass. That is a terrible name. Who came up with that? The 47 botanists who died trying to study it. Ah. He nodded, like I had just told him it was raining outside. What does it do? I pulled up my datapad, scrolling through the hazard information. The Vorthian death fruit, native to the high radiation zones of Varades Prime, contains an acid compound capable of dissolving titanium alloy within minutes. The outer skin secretes a contact poison that causes immediate neural paralysis in 98% of known species. Ingestion results in, I paused, looking at the list, catastrophic internal hemorrhaging, complete organ failure, and what the report describes as, quote, extremely unpleasant death. Huh. Marcus straightened up, scratching his chin. But what does it taste like? Specialist Webb, you are not listening to me. This fruit has killed, yeah, lots of people, very dangerous, I got it. He waved a hand dismissively. But like, someone must have tasted it before they died, right? What did they say? I stared at him. Both of my eyes, the main set and the auxiliary set I use for peripheral monitoring, all 4 of them just stared. The toxin works in microseconds. There were no coherent final words. Shame. He actually looked disappointed. Then, and I will never forget this moment for as long as I live, he smiled. Want to know something funny about humans, Krell? Not particularly. We are really, really hard to kill. Before I could process that ominous statement, Captain Thorne's voice crackled over the intercom. All senior staff to the bridge. We have a situation. Saved by the comm system. I gave Marcus one more warning look, my most serious one, the look I usually reserve for drunk Corvallians trying to start fights in the mess hall, and headed for the bridge. The situation turned out to be spatial pirates. Because of course it was. 3 small fighters had dropped out of hyperspace behind us, already powering weapons. They were demanding we heave to and prepare for boarding, which in pirate speak means we are going to rob you and possibly murder everyone. Captain Thorne was remarkably calm, her scales barely shifting color. Options? We cannot outrun them, said Pilot Vex, a nervous Zenthari whose antennae were doing that rapid flutter thing they do when stressed. The cargo load is too heavy. Defense systems? Online, but those are military-grade fighters. That was me, reading the tactical display. Our shields will hold for maybe 2-3 volleys before collapse. Can we negotiate? They are flying under the Crimson Void banner. Lieutenant Ferris, our communications officer, looked up from her console. Her translation tentacles were knotted with worry. They do not negotiate. They take everything in space, anyone who resists. The bridge went quiet. This was bad. This was very bad. I had exactly 3 different emergency protocols running through my head, none of which ended with us alive. Then Marcus walked in. Hey, heard we got pirates. Need any help? Captain Thorne's scales flushed orange, her species equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Specialist Webb, this is a restricted area during combat situations. Right, totally get that. He leaned against a console, completely unbothered by the blaring alarm klaxons or the fact that the ship shuddered as a warning shot skimmed our shields. But here is the thing. I have an idea. Unless your idea involves making 3 fighter craft disappear, I am not interested. Better. That smile again. The one that made my survival instinct scream. I can make them run away. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at him. Pilot Vec's antenna actually stopped fluttering. Explain, Captain Thorne said slowly. Humans have this thing, right? We have got a reputation now. Word spreads in space pretty fast. He pushed off the console, walking toward the viewscreen where the 3 fighters were visible, growing closer. Every species out here has been hearing stories about us. The crazy stuff we survive. The weird things we eat. How we are basically made of spare parts and bad decisions. Your point, Specialist? My point, Captain, is that reputation is a weapon. He turned back to us. Let me talk to them. 5 minutes. If they do not turn around and run, you can try whatever plan B you have got. It was completely insane. It violated at least 6 different regulations. Captain Thorne should have said no, should have confined him to quarters, should have done literally anything except what she did. 2 minutes, she said. Ferris, open a channel. Marcus cracked his knuckles, a disturbing human habit that makes it sound like their bones are breaking, and nodded. Put me on screen. The pirate captain appeared on the viewscreen, a Scarvian with the typical ridge crest and far too many visible weapons. Cargo vessel, this is your final warning. Cut engines and prepare for, hi there, Marcus interrupted, giving a little wave. Quick question before you board us. You guys ever hear what happened to the night fallout near the Kepler run? The pirate captain's crest flattened slightly. What does that have to do with SCI? The Nightfall tried to raid a human colony ship last month. Whole crew went dark. When the recovery team found it, everyone on board was. He paused for effect. Well, they did not find everyone on board, if you know what I mean. You are bluffing, but the pirate's voice had lost some confidence. Am I? Marcus stepped closer to the screen. How about the incident at Station Prometheus? Or the transport that picked a fight with that human freighter near Andromeda Gate? You know what all those have in common? Silence from the pirates. They all underestimated humans. Marcus's smile disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. See, here is the thing about my species. We climb to the top of the food chain on a death world by being more stubborn than everything trying to kill us. We eat foods that would poison you. We breathe atmosphere that would burn your lungs. We think pain is temporary and vengeance is forever. This is psychological warfare, the pirate captain said, but their crest was fully flattened now. Oh, this is not warfare, Marcus said quietly. This is a warning. There are 43 humans on this vessel. 43 people who grew up on a planet that is actively trying to kill them every single day. You really want to find out what we are capable of when someone threatens our crew. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity, then the pirate ship's engines flared bright, they turned around and jumped to hyperspace, all 3 of them gone, the bridge was absolutely silent. Captain Thorne slowly turned to look at Marcus, her scales cycling through about 6 different colors. There are not 43 humans on this ship, Specialist Webb. I know. His smile came back. There is just me. But they did not need to know that. That is when the alarms started blaring again. Different alarms this time. Biohazard alarms, coming from Cargo Bay 7, or AN. By the time we reached Cargo Bay 7, half the ship's crew had already assembled outside the sealed blast doors. Emergency lights bathed everything in that sickly yellow glow that says, something has gone catastrophically wrong and you should probably start praying to whatever deity your species believes in. Report, Captain Thorne barked at the security team. Lieutenant Ferris consulted her datapad, her translation tentacles trembling. Containment breach in Storage Unit 42. Biosensors detected unauthorized access approximately 4 minutes ago. The system initiated automatic lockdown. Storage Unit 42. My brain did some quick math and arrived at a number I really did not want it to arrive at. That is where we keep the Vorthian death fruit. Everyone turned to look at Marcus. What? He held up his hands defensively. I have been with you guys the whole time. Busy scaring pirates, remember? The breach occurred before the pirate encounter, Ferris said, her voice tight. Timestamp shows it happened while you were in the bay earlier. Marcus had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. Okay, so maybe I got curious. Curious? I felt my upper arms start to twitch, a Vorthian stress response. Curious about the fruit that dissolves titanium and kills everything that touches it? Look, in my defense, the containment field was really easy to bypass. You guys should really upgrade your security systems. I barely had to, Webb. Captain Thorne's scales had gone full crimson now, which meant she was about 3 seconds from spacing someone. Did you touch the death fruit? Touch is such a strong word. Did you or did you not make physical contact with the most lethal botanical specimen on this ship? Marcus shifted his weight, looking remarkably calm for someone who should have been dead several minutes ago. I may have conducted a small experiment. The cargo bay doors suddenly hissed, the lockdown disengaging. That should not have happened. Lockdowns do not just turn off by themselves. Through the slowly opening doors, we could see the interior of the bay, and everything appeared normal. No acid burns on the walls. No dead bodies on the floor. No signs of catastrophic contamination, just Marcus's jacket draped over a cargo crate, and sitting next to it, the Vorthian death fruit. Outside of its containment unit. Just sitting there like a regular piece of produce at a market, with a bite taken out of it, a very human-shaped bite. By the 7 suns, someone whispered behind me. Captain Thorne moved first, striding into the bay with her scanner out, checking the atmospheric readings. Toxin levels are elevated but not critical. The fruit's defensive secretions should have turned this entire bay into a chemical nightmare. She looked at Marcus, then at the fruit, then back at Marcus. Explain. Now. So here's the thing, Marcus began, walking casually into the bay like we were discussing the weather and not his apparent immunity to certain death. Remember how I said humans are hard to kill? I am beginning to understand that was not bragging, I muttered. Our homeworld, Earth, it is kind of a nightmare if you think about it objectively. He picked up the fruit, and I swear every person in that doorway took a step back. We have plants that cause excruciating pain from just brushing against them. Fruits that smell like rotting corpses. Peppers that we eat for fun even though they trigger the same pain receptors as actual fire. That does not explain why you are not dead, Lieutenant Ferris said. I am getting there. He turned the fruit over in his hands. The purple skin where he had bitten it was oozing that clear fluid, the contact poison that was supposed to cause instant neural paralysis. Human biology is weird. We evolved to handle all sorts of chemical compounds that would kill most species. Our livers are basically overclocked detox machines. We produce stomach acid that can dissolve metal. We can build up tolerance to toxins through repeated exposure. The death fruit's poison works in microseconds, I protested. There is no time for tolerance. For most species, yeah. Marcus took another bite of the fruit. I think my heart stopped. All 3 of them. Vorthians have redundant organs, but in that moment, every single one of my cardiovascular backups just quit. He chewed thoughtfully, made a face, and swallowed. Still needs salt though. Taste is kind of bitter, like unripe persimmon mixed with battery acid. Texture is weird too, sort of grainy. Captain Thorne had her scanner pointed directly at him. His vital signs are elevated but stable. Elevated heart rate, increased adrenaline production, but no signs of organ failure or neural disruption. How? That was Pilot Vex, antenna fully extended in shock. How is this possible? Marcus shrugged. Best guess? The toxin is protein-based, right? Human stomach acid has a pH around 1.5 to 3.5. That is strong enough to denature most protein chains before they can enter the bloodstream. Plus, our immune systems are ridiculously aggressive. We had to be living on a planet with millions of species all trying to infect us, poison us, or eat us. You are telling me, Captain Thorne said slowly, that you consumed one of the most lethal substances known to galactic science, as an experiment, because you thought your digestive system could handle it? When you say it like that, it sounds irresponsible. It is irresponsible. But I was right though. He held up the half-eaten fruit. Look, I am fine. Better than fine, actually. I think the compounds in this thing might have some interesting nutritional properties. My datapad analysis showed high concentrations of amino acids and what might be vitamin analogs. I finally found my voice. You ran a chemical analysis before eating it? I am reckless, Krell, not stupid. He grinned. There is a difference. A very small difference, I muttered. The real question, Marcus continued, walking over to the storage units, is why everyone assumes this thing is poisonous to everything. I checked the xenobiology database. Every test subject was carbon-based, oxygen-breathing, with similar biochemistry. Nobody ever tried it on a species with fundamentally different biology. Lieutenant Ferris's tentacles, I nodded slightly. You are suggesting the lethality is not universal, just widespread within a certain biological profile? Exactly. And humans sit just outside that profile because we are freaks of nature who evolved on a planet that really, really wanted us dead. He took another bite. Seriously though, anyone got salt? This would be way better with some seasoning. That is when the second alarm went off, different bay this time. Bay 3, where we stored the cryogenic samples. Captain Thorne's scales went through about 15 colors in 3 seconds. What now? We sprinted through the corridors, Marcus trailing behind still holding his partially eaten death fruit. When we reached Bay 3, the situation was immediately clear and immediately terrible. The cryo units were failing. All of them. Temperature readings were climbing, and inside the tanks, various frozen specimens were beginning to thaw. This would not normally be catastrophic except for one small detail. Tank 7 contained a glacian iceworm. Please tell me that is still frozen, Captain Thorne said, her voice very quiet. The tank's status light blinked from blue to amber. Mostly frozen? Ferris offered weakly. Iceworms are not actually from glaciers. They are from a moon called Glacius that makes Antarctica look like a tropical resort. They are 30 meters long, covered in diamond-hard scales, and they eat by freezing their prey solid and then shattering them into bite-sized chunks. They are also, and this is the important part, extremely aggressive when awakened. The amber light turned red. Everyone out, Captain Thorne ordered. Seal the bay and vent it to space. We cannot, Vex said, checking the controls. Venting systems are offline. The pirate's warning shot must have damaged the control relays. Then we evacuate the ship and trigger the emergency beacon. Captain, the nearest response vessel is 4 days away. The cryotank exploded outward in a shower of ice and glass. The iceworm uncoiled, its body still partly frozen, and let out a sound like a glacier calving mixed with a scream. It thrashed, smashing into equipment, its breath dropping the temperature so fast that frost formed on every surface. Webb, run. I grabbed Marcus's arm, trying to pull him toward the door. He did not move. He was staring at the iceworm with that expression again. That look that said his brain was doing calculations that would horrify any reasonable person. Marcus, this is not the time for. He threw the death fruit. The purple sphere arced through the air, spinning, and landed directly in the iceworm's open mouth. The creature swallowed reflexively, then froze. Not from its own powers, just froze in confusion like it was trying to process what just happened. We all were, honestly, for about 5 seconds. Nothing happened. Then the iceworm made a sound I have never heard before and hope to never hear again. A sort of gurgling, choking, confused whimper. Its diamond-hard scales began to smoke. Not burn, smoke, like the acid was working through them from the inside. The titanium-dissolving properties, Marcus said calmly. I figured if it could eat through metal, it could probably handle biological compounds too. The iceworm thrashed once, twice, and then simply collapsed. Its internal temperature had apparently risen so fast from the chemical reaction that it could not maintain its frozen state. It melted, sort of, into a rapidly expanding puddle of organic slush. We stood there. All of us. Just stood there watching a legendary apex predator get defeated by a piece of fruit. Did that just happen? Pilot Vex whispered. I am putting this in my report, Captain Thorne said, her voice distant, and nobody is going to believe me. Marcus brushed frost off his shoulders. So, about that cultural exchange program. Am I doing good? Because I feel like I am contributing positively to crew morale. I looked at Captain Thorne. She looked at me. We both looked at Marcus. Webb, the captain said slowly, you terrified pirates through psychological warfare, survived eating something that has killed dozens of trained xenobiologists, and just weaponized that same lethal fruit to save the ship from an iceworm. Yes. This was your first 3 weeks. Technically 2 weeks and 6 days, but who was counting? Captain Thorne was quiet for a long moment. Then, incredibly, she laughed. It was a tired, slightly hysterical laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. Humanity is going to change everything about how this galaxy works, are they not? Probably, Marcus admitted. We tend to have that effect. She shook her head, scales settling into a resigned blue. Fine. You are officially assigned to hazardous materials research. If humans can eat things that kill everyone else, we need to know what else you can do. Does this mean I get a raise? It means you get supervision. Constant, unending supervision. She pointed at me. Krell, that is your job now. Wherever Webb goes, you go. Document everything. Keep him from accidentally starting an interstellar incident. I opened my mouth to protest, then closed it. What was the point? Humans were here now. We just had to adapt. Also, Marcus added helpfully, I have some ideas about those fermented Gloxian paste barrels in storage 8. If death fruit is edible, I bet I could. No. But, absolutely not. You did not even let me finish. I do not need to. The answer is no. Marcus grinned. This is going to be a fun assignment. I checked my datapad, calculating how many cycles I had left until retirement. Not enough. Not nearly enough, but as I watched Marcus help the cleanup crew, chatting cheerfully about human cuisine and asking if anyone wanted to try death fruit smoothies, I realized something. The galaxy was going to have to make room for humanity. Because they were not going to slow down, were not going to be cautious, and were definitely not going to stop eating things they should not eat, and honestly? After today, I was curious to see what they would do next, from a safe distance, of course, always from a safe distance.